Hello everybody and welcome to Performance on Wheels. Today I'm going to tell you everything that you need to know about the 2025 Ford Maverick. I'm going to show you everything on the Tremor, everything on the XLT, everything on the Lariat hybrid all-wheel drive,
and the most exciting thing yet, the all-new 2025 Ford Maverick Lobo.
Before we get into these Mavericks, my name is Austin and my dad Todd and I make all sorts of videos on all sorts of cars. This is the #1 Ford Maverick channel on all of YouTube. Be sure to hit like, hit subscribe, and let's dive deep into the all-new 2025 Ford Maverick. It was a really cool opportunity listening to the engineers behind the Lobo because it almost sounded like they were watching our videos because they engineered this Lobo exactly for what we've been asking for. Let's go ahead and run through all of the cool features on this $35,000 starting price of the 2025 Ford Maverick Lobo. In the Lobo, it was all about performance, and what they did is they took the standard 2-liter, they didn't add any power to it, but to make sure it stayed as cool as possible, they threw the tranny cooler on there, the radiator cooler on there, that we can find over on that 4K tow package. And then they also took, this is probably the biggest deal out of the entire Lobo, okay? They took what we find in tech in the Tremor model, that rear diff, and they put that rear diff inside of here to allow us to do torque vectoring to essentially make this the ultimate autocross truck. It was entirely their to go after the enthusiasts and make this the most fun driving street truck that they possibly could.
Let's talk about that just a little bit further because we have Lobo mode, and what that does is it essentially allows, I heard this from the engineer's mouth, it allows the Lobo to do donuts, right?
That's crazy.
Kind of fun.
That's crazy.
There's more to it. If you're going fast around a track, you also have to be able to stop. So what they did is they took the Focus ST, the European model, the dual piston brake calipers. They put those up front. They did change the compound of the brake pads so they weren't so aggressive that you can use them on a daily basis. But obviously you can change out for those track pads out in your driveway. That's a good point for customization. And there's also more to it. They actually took the European version of the Escape and put the steering rack into the Lobo, and what that does is it really quickens up the steering feel, the steering turn time. You combine that with what Austin mentioned, the torque vectoring, which means you're steering faster in the back now, maybe a little oversteer if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But you're also able to manipulate that front end smile maker. Like, this is a track machine, right? So no horsepower increases, but they're took things into account like keeping the turbo spool up. When you let off that throttle, those RPMs stay high. The way that the transmission is tuned, that it continues to spin so that those shifts come hard. I'm excited to get behind the wheel of one of these and really experience
it. And it actually, on the same note of shifting, it is now equipped with paddle shifters to make it even more enjoyable and more engaging as you're behind the wheel of the Lobo. Now that we're done talking about the outside, let's quick cover the inside and move on to the next trim. Inside of the Maverick Lobo, you're going to find something very similar to the previous generation of Maverick. The whole interior is laid out pretty much identical to the previous gen Maverick. However, we have a lot of new fun features, including this one, which I actually really like. The thing I absolutely hated most about my previous gen Maverick on the XL and XLT variant was the fake sync screen that we had in there, and we only got Sync 3 when we moved all the way up to the Lariat. Now, standard is the newest version of Sync 4 across the entire board with an all-new screen, an 8-inch instrument cluster screen. It is so much better. The tech in here is fantastic. Wireless CarPlay across the board. That includes the XL, so that is a really big deal inside of the Maverick. I just wanted to bring that up, even though we're starting on the Lobo. That's kind of a big deal. But on the Lobo, the engineers actually took some graffiti into the design of coming up with how to make this a colorful, fun interior that really differentiates itself from anything else on the market. They used this fun blue. They used this fun yellow.
Grabber blue, Austin.
Yeah, it's grabber blue. It actually matches the color perfectly. They use this cool like graffiti font to write Lobo in here in this almost spray paint overspray style across the entire seat on the bottom. And they actually do the same design on the Tremor, but it matches that fun orange color that we see throughout the entire exterior. One of the other things I forgot to bring up that I really like in the exterior of the Lobo is all painted bumpers. Painted bumpers in the rear, front, and the side valances. Not only that, but standard 19-inch wheels, and you do have a couple of wheel options, and these ones look absolutely phenomenal. Really play into that street truck or like almost rally inspired design.
Yeah.
Very similar to the wheels we just saw released on the Mustang Mach-E Rally actually, and I absolutely love them.
Austin, those are great points. A few more things just to highlight quick. The suspension, we did use the shocks like you mentioned before out of the Tremor FX4, those same dampeners, right? But we lowered them. The Ford engineers lowered the front of the Lobo about 0.8 inches in the front, over an inch in the rear, but to add to that dramatic effect, just like Austin mentioned, the painted front and rear bumpers. Then to keep your eyes looking low, you can actually get a gloss black roof.
Now that we're done talking about the Lobo, let's go ahead and move over to this Lariat Maverick, where before I start talking about the trim, I actually want to talk about the powertrain. On all models, other than the Lobo and the Tremor, the hybrid is standard, and you can now get it in all-wheel drive. All-wheel drive estimated EPA is 40 miles per gallon, where front-wheel drive is still at 42 miles per gallon. And what is also a huge kicker is the all-wheel drive version of the hybrid can now get the 4K tow package. So you can get 40 miles per gallon, have all-wheel drive, and tow 4,000 pounds. That is a huge deal. Dad, just before I have you take over, we need to take in this beautiful eruption green featured on this Lariat, as well as those 19-inch wheels. You can get 19-inch wheels on the Lariat and the Lobo, which are both bigger than any wheel offered in the previous model.
So there's also some other fun things to mention on the Lariat, and this goes across all trims really, because Ford did a good job of taking some steps on the front end design to make stronger differentiators between each trim level. The grills, the front fascia, everything's slightly different now. 1,500 pound payload, by the way, that's pretty substantial. We still have that similar Lariat, but down here by me, we do see something new here, and that's a camera, because we have a 360 camera as an option now, which is pretty awesome. There's also some other tech that is familiar or carrying over from like the F-150, and that would be the Pro Trailer Assist, as well as the Pro Hitch Assist, so you can master a trailer like a pro even in your Maverick with your 4K tow package. If you don't have the 4K tow package, it is still a 2,000 pound towing capacity, just to state that really quick.
Dad, I'm glad that you brought up the differentiator between trims on the new Maverick. And one of those things is most identifiably up front, and that would be the entire front end. They changed up the grille, they changed up the bottom end here. Notice the silver that we have down on the bottom of the bumper here. Also take in mind the parking sensors, and that 360-degree camera is actually right under the new Ford logo. Also, on the Lariat trim specifically, we now have LED projector headlamps, which is fantastic. It looks really good. I'm excited to see this thing at night.
I really like the way that Maverick is illuminated there on the side of the headlight. That looks really cool.
The adaptive cruise control radar is now way down low instead of right under that Ford logo. I was not a fan of that on the previous year. However, on the Tremor model, because of the aggressive approach angle up front, we do still have it right under that Ford logo, but it is slightly different. As we move around back of the 2025 Maverick, this is where we can just tell it was a mid-cycle refresh. Not a whole lot of changes back here, and that's not a bad thing. The Maverick was already a great truck to begin with. This light back here is new, illuminates a little LED back here, which is kind of nice. When you open up a door, that light turns on. The new Ford logo, but overall in back, nothing looks too different. This looks a little bit more aggressive. And the same thing when we open up the bed. Ford is still offering that extended bed, and everything back here looks pretty much the same. We still have the same locking, sliding bed rails, the storage cubby, the light, the charger, all that is the same like we had on the Lariat from the previous model year. On the interior of the Lariat, once again, the same tech that we're seeing across the entire board. However, we did get a color palette change on the whole interior. I am a fan of the new color palette. We got kind of like an off tan with some of those speckles in here. Still that same kind of dark, really dark blue, some black accents, a couple of orange touches here and there. But all in all, the new interior of the Maverick, I love this color combo here on the Lariat. But other than the screen, ultimately, and the very minorly reworked area right down here where our climate control used to be, because our climate control is now all done through a display, by the way. We do not have any physical buttons for climate anymore. They were all done through the display. Other than this section right here and your new dash, this looks very familiar to the previous year.
As we transition over to the XLT FX4, I think it's important to know that the Maverick goes through the exact same standard testing that a Super Duty truck does. That's equivalent to 150,000 miles or 10 years of use and abuse, and the Maverick passes with flying colors. Built Ford tough. Pointing out some of those differences, all trims can now come with that gloss black headlight housing. And looking at the grille here, it looks very similar to the Lariat on the XLT where we are now, except we do not have the chrome little touches in between each of the grille openings. And you can also see the gloss black around the lowest part of the valance here. And we have tow hooks as well. Looks kind of good.
Moving on to the inside of the most loved Ford Maverick truck trim, the XLT. We got rid of that orange color that a lot of people did not like very much, and we brought in some bright blue accents. I actually really like these bright blue accents. They're all throughout the interior. I think, in my opinion, it looks a lot better than the random bright orange that we had in the previous year. But we have this this blue stitching and all these blue accents throughout the interior. Very similar looking seats to the black appearance XLT that we saw in the previous year. And then we have this nice like white touch across the dashboard as well. Great looking interior, and I think this is a huge upgrade over the previous gen XLT. No longer featured as an option on the XLT or Lariat, the Tremor now steps above the Lariat as its own identifiable trim, which is kind of fun, and I think it's well deserved, especially with all of the design cue changes that we have. And what's new other than that?
Austin, well, there's just two things I do want to point out. I love the fact that they incorporated the orange into the side graphic as well as the hood graphic.
It looks so good over terrain.
And we also have to say goodbye to the Wild Peaks and hello to the Goodyear Territory RTs as I almost fall over in absolute awe.
The new graphics pack on the Tremor is amazing.
I like it.
Absolutely love it, like the mud splashing design. We kind of saw that on the 2024 model year, that mud splash, but now bringing that gold accent into it and just the new layout of it across the hood and the side valances, in my opinion, significant upgrade over the previous year.
It looks really good, and I like the fact with the narrower headlights and the wider grille that's on all trims. I really like the way that it looks on the Tremor because it makes that front end look more aggressive.
It does.
Because of that slope of that approach angle up front. So I really like the front end of the Tremor.
Let's actually talk about the front end here for a second. We do have an identifiable grille that only comes on the Tremor. Absolutely, like you just said, love the headlights. Still have parking sensors on the front of the Tremor here. 360 degree comes standard on this thing to help you see and navigate what's going on in the trails in front of you. These super identifiable tow hooks up front. Like the whole front end of the Tremor, in my opinion, looks significantly more aggressive and identifying than the previous gen. One of the items I still find to be absolutely ridiculous on the Maverick is these aren't cheap trucks, guys. Still have a manual dimming rearview mirror, even in the top trim. Guys, just put an auto dimming rearview mirror in this thing. Come on. On the inside of the Tremor Maverick, we again get those same paddle shifters that we got over on the Lobo. We have, of course, the identifiable Tremor seats. Across all Mavericks, we have a new shift knob. It actually has a lot more grip than the previous generation. Not anything that the engineers really brought up to us, but it feels way better in the hand. Also, they took out the identifiable Tremor mode select button, and they also said that they added some more tech to the Tremor to make it more off-road capable, and they added some additional drive modes. However, at this time, I'm not aware of what those are.
Ladies and gentlemen, it was so much fun joining you in Detroit today for the first look at the 2025 Ford Maverick and all the different trims. Ladies and gentlemen, we're looking forward to getting behind the wheel. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe button so you can continue to join us on our Maverick journey.